everybody, and welcome to another episode of Walk with Drew. My name is Drew Muzan, joined alongside a very special guest. Just met via a friend a couple weeks ago, Donald Currie. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you having me, man.
Yes, sir. So a little bit of background on Donald Currie. He is just an all-around creative, just like I am. Just doing everything from everything within content. And we kind of just wanted to have a conversation just about creative burnout and talk through some things. But first, Donald, if you could kind of indulge me a little bit about your background as it relates to media.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, crazy thing is, in my school, with college and everything, I did nothing related to media. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
What'd you go to school for?
athletic training. Yeah, way left. So, I went to UNCC. I did my first
Okay.
year down in Fayetteville. That's where I'm from. So,
Okay.
transferred up here, and the end goal was to do physical therapy because I saw this cat that came to our school, senior year of high school. He showed me what a physical therapist does. It looked easy. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. He was like, man, they make six figures. I saw him with a clipboard just telling people
Yeah.
how to, do exercise, and you make six figures. I'm like, all right, I can do that too. But when I got into it, man, and honestly, I did 4 years of college. But I walked away in that fourth year because I realized, man, this was not what I was supposed to be doing. I kind of just
Oh, so
followed the
you
track.
did 4 years worth of work and
Yeah,
didn't figure it out?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I don't regret it, except for the student loans because I didn't have to take them. But that's another story, another talk.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
crazy you say that because it's just like I went to school, my first major was sports management.
Oh
Like I was
wow.
just telling
Okay.
you
Yeah.
beforehand, I wanted to
Yeah.
be a coach. So my first thing was sport management. And then I figured because I wanted to be a coach. And then they told me, oh, you got to get an education degree. I was like, education degree. I'm not getting an education. I'm not teaching PE. I don't want to teach PE. I just want to
Nah,
go
bro.
straight
I'm
to
not doing
college
that.
and
Exactly.
teaching and coaching college basketball. I don't want to get a PE degree. And once I figured it out, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna switch, and I flip flopped them. But yeah, so how
Yeah.
did you end up? So then you
Yeah.
finished college and then you got into media. How did you get in?
Yeah. So really, it all came through church. So I met my mentor, who's still my mentor today, and I met him through a previous friend, and he was into a lot of entrepreneurial, kind of like a serial entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
and I met him, and then I got introduced to our current church right now. And basically he was like, being a mentor that he was, kind of helping me walk that Christian path. Cause I didn't go to church when I was young. I didn't
Word.
see, you know, real authentic, Christianity till I was in my mid-20s. So he was like, man, the first thing you need to do is just find some place to serve. So, what was open at the time and that I felt like I would like was to be on the camera. And I did that for about a year. Then I just kind of slowly but surely learned everything about the media department. And, as I grew through the years, kind of became a department lead in our church with the media department. And then folks just kind of started to see some of the skills that I had. And I was working at the bank, Wells Fargo, and my pastor called me one day. He was like, "Hey, man, if I matched your salary, would you come, run our media team full time?" I was like, "Sure."
Heck yes.
So yeah,
Match is the
so
secret
yeah,
word. Go ahead, match
absolutely,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm there. So
Right.
like I said, people saw it, what they saw on the screens, they liked it, so they just started reaching out to me, and that's kind of how 1224 Media got birthed. So.
Word. So it's our paths are kind of tailored along too. So I graduated college and realized I didn't want to do sports broadcasting. So I should have went to school for music business or at least started to try to do something with content. And then I graduated. I grew up in church, but I didn't really develop like a relationship with God till I was like 22, 23. And then growing in that relationship, I got input on with the ministry here in Charlotte. It's kind of discontinued now, but got put on with a ministry with a guy who was my mentor. And he was like, we were at how I kind of got to the ministry was we went to the same school, found him on Facebook, and then I was at one of the meetings on Thursday, and he was like, hey man, he was doing content. He was like, hey man, you wanna get on here and talk with me? I was like, sure. I did content beforehand. I was familiar with it a little bit, but this kind of was like the restart. And then that was how starting with those videos and doing those things on YouTube with him kind of got me started into doing my own YouTube. So our paths are kind of like trailing along. So with that, like talk a little bit about just like running, like what's running a media company like the ins and outs.
Man, it's so many pieces to it because, you know, starting off kind of as a, you know, sole proprietor from that position, you know, there's a lot of things that you want to do and you got this big vision in your head, but it's only so much that one person can do. So, you know, talking with mentors and surrounding myself with people that, you know, have kind of blazed that trail, maybe not necessarily in media, but in business in general. I kind of had to slow down to speed up. So it is really, I think it's making sure that you have a good rhythm, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And then also, you know, knowing what your goals are and not being afraid to reset those every 6, 8, 12 months. Because what I thought, you know, my business would be today, 2 years ago, it's nothing like that. So, you know, I thought, you know, of course, none of us had any clue that COVID would come around. And I had this big plan of having this big brick and mortar and, you know,
we're gonna
everything
get
would
into
be
that too.
gravy.
I forgot about the COVID shift because it's September now. So we're gonna talk about the COVID shift too because that's a shift. Go ahead.
So, you know, if I had gone that route, I'd be in trouble right now. You know, probably be bankrupt and out of business. So, you know, I'm glad, you know, God led me a different way. But I think, you know, knowing what your goals are and then kind of working backwards helps you in business in general, whether it's creativity or whatnot. But that's definitely what keeps me afloat.
So like with that, like in creating a media company, that's like you're doing all of the work, all the responsibility. And I would have to think like some creative burnout is in there. Some, you know, you're burning out a little bit. How do you kind of pace yourself when it comes to, you know, balancing your tasks, being that you're the sole proprietor, like you said? How do you kind of balance that out?
So I guess I'll go ahead and just dive into it because, you know, with creative burnout, I think it is a culmination of, and some people disagree with me on this, but I believe this just because of my experience and when I talk to people. But burnout, whether it's at your job, whether it's in ministry, whether it's your own business, is just it's a result of not having proper boundaries in life. Proper boundaries in business, proper boundaries in your time, family, work, whatever the case may be. So how I kind of balance it is I've actually learned to not try to balance. So that I know that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, dig into that for me.
Yeah. So I don't try to live my life balanced. I don't try to live a balanced life. When people say, you know, you should try to have a work-life balance, I don't believe that exists. Especially for somebody who's a high-level achiever. So for me, and I learned this from my pastor, is like, the goal shouldn't be to have a balanced life. It should be to have a good rhythm. So from a music perspective, if you're looking at, and forgive me if I'm, you know, pronouncing the term wrong, but if you're looking at like music notes on a wavelength, and you know how you you may go through the same melody, you know, that every 4 times or whatever the case may be, see that same, you know, pattern repeating itself. That's how I feel high level achievers, people in business that are trying to run any type of creativity business should be. So for me, what that looks like is, you know, if you're looking at that first big curve on that wavelength, for me, you know, that little dip may be an hour every day, you know, reading or taking a drive, which I like to do to relax my mind. And then that big curve may be, you know, that 8 to 10 hour day where I got to put in the work to create whatever the case may be for the project, for the client. Then that, you know, that dip back down into the valley may be that I cut off, work on Fridays and be with my wife and my kids so that, I can give them the time they need. And I'm back up, checking my calendar. So as long as I have a consistent rhythm that I'm okay with, that I've talked with my wife about, my mentors are in play with it, that helps me versus me trying to balance out and say, I'm going to give my wife, my job, my business, my kids all equal shared times, for 4 hours a day. Everybody gets 4 hours a day every day. Like, that's
Yeah.
not realistic.
I
So
get what you said, because it makes me think about that too, because like you don't know, like COVID, you don't know what things are going to happen, to where if you set that work-life balance at 4 hours here, 4 hours there, you don't know what project is going to be more demanding. You don't know what day your wife's going to need. So if you're just you immerse yourself in it and you create boundaries, it is kind of better. So I get what you're saying. That's interesting. That's the first time I've ever heard somebody deny like the whole work life, like work life. What?
man.
No work life balance. That's an interesting concept. How long? Like, when did you kind of come to that revelation?
Uh, Probably last year, because
Okay.
and I'm a transparent person. Got in trouble with the wife. It's like, she's like, hey, I'm over here. What's
Right.
going? You always, you in front of your computer, because when I'm in it, I'm in it.
Right.
And, because I'm sort of a perfectionist, and I want to make sure that what I produce, is seen in good light with those that I'm doing projects for. I'm gonna be in it, and I'm gonna make sure it's to all my T's are crossed, my I's are dotted. But sometimes that means I'm in front of the computer for 6 hours straight, and I'm not
Mm.
giving my wife or my kids the time that they're supposed to have. So I'm in counseling for that right now. I've been in counseling since November, trying to get rid of that workaholic mentality and making sure that I'm, being, understanding husband and whatnot for what she needs. Because it's easy with me, like I have 4 or 5 other ideas of businesses and ventures that I want to jump into, but I'm one person, and
Right.
like we talked about before, the recording, certain circumstances can arise, and now I
Right.
got more stuff on my plate than I originally wanted.
Right.
So yeah, it was about a year ago, man, and my pastor said it like 4 years ago, but I didn't really pay much attention to it because everybody says, yeah, you should have a
Right.
work-life balance. But I
Right.
figured out like that doesn't work for me. Like, plus I'm a night owl.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
up
not.
to
I'm asleep. My
you
friends
sleep.
know me all the time. I'm by 10 p.m. I'm out. They know don't call Drew. Now, if I'm editing something, or
Yeah,
if I'm recording, I can stay up however long. If I'm
yeah,
working, if I need to do
yeah.
something, but outside of that, now I'm asleep. I'm
Sleep.
10 p.m. I'm out. 12. I'm out. I can't do
Yeah,
it. Nope.
yeah. That's my wife. So for me, having those long hours at night, I wake up, or I may go to bed at 2:30, and my kids are my alarm clock. They get up at 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can't say, oh man, I've been working all night, I can't get up and fix them breakfast. Like, that don't fly, Jack. So
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Yeah. So when you were talking about like the workaholic mentality, like, and going back to my relationship with my old mentor,
mhm,
he is a workaholic. We're
mhm,
not really in communication anymore. But when I knew him, as we were, in like relations, like friendship or whatever, I would see he talk about staying up 6 o'clock in the morning, watching the sunrise, working on a book, or working on a video for this,
yeah,
and staying up doing this, or working on a course all night, recording this all night. And
mhm,
being a mentor of mine, I was locked into that restlessness mentality, and I still got it. Like,
yeah,
I still got it. Like, I'm
yeah,
taking a break in October from doing a lot of content, like posting a lot and recording a
mhm,
lot, and just kind of regrouping. And that's like gnawing at me, because I'm like,
yeah,
I can't take a break. I gotta continue. We're gonna get
yeah,
into talking about that, but I'm
yeah,
like, I can't take a break. I gotta continue. But
yeah,
I'm kind of that same workaholic, not necessarily in the staying up till like 2, but
mhm,
like I won't take breaks from content. Like, I'll
yeah,
go 13, 14, 15 weeks straight of
yeah,
recording something every single week, and I'll continue to do it. You know what I'm saying? And my
mhm,
friends will try to get on me like, okay, you need to stop, get into that restless pattern. But I don't
yeah.
want to get into us talking about rest too early.
Okay.
So you give me like one experience that that can come to mind of like a creative burnout.
Uh, I would probably say the one that comes to mind the most is um, probably it wasn't really one project per se. It
Okay.
was kind of like a span of time. Like for me, when I get burnout, it's like I gotta, like you said, I gotta step away for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was I had taken on a new client, and what I like to do, or what we like to do with our company, is whenever we work with a new client, we generally like to do at least a 6-month contract minimum,
Okay.
because for us to be able to show you what we can do over a long term, and for you to see measurable results, it's got to be at least 90 days, but we like to say 6 months. So you know, before I had any contractors or anything like that, like I said, it was all me.
Mm.
And what I made the mistake of was I saw how much money I could bring in from that, and I did not assess the amount of
Facts.
work
Fact.
that it was going to take to be
Fact.
able to give that client what they need. Because I'm also a firm believer of under promise, over deliver. So,
Mm.
if I say I'm going to do something, in all reality, I'm going to do a little bit more, because I want to wow you, keep you as a client, make sure I get referrals. So, once I started digging into creating this content for this client, I realized, man, I'm kind of head over heels in what I got to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, what ended up happening was what I just talked about a few minutes ago. I would stay up till 2, 3 in the morning, which wasn't necessarily out of the norm,
Right.
but it was because I was using so much mental energy trying to come up with something original and creative for this client. I was taxed out from like 6 a.m. to basically 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And I ain't had no creative juice.
Mm.
I was having to drink energy drinks every night, and I don't even do that. Like,
Yeah, that's not
that's
me.
not my, yeah, that's not my thing. Like I drink, some hot tea, and I'm straight. I'm
Right.
gonna eat good. I drink some tea. I'm ready to go.
Some water, I'm out. I'm
Yeah.
straight. Right.
So, what I had to learn was that, or one of the things that I learned, really two things. One is that and this was probably the beginning of last year when I ran into this mountain or whatever. One of the things I had to learn was that I don't always have to be an originator to meet a client's needs.
I'm still learning that. Please rebuke me, teach me whatever. I'm still learning that because that's hard for me, man.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, really, in practical terms, what that means for me sometimes is that, like, if you give me a blank sheet of paper or a blank Photoshop canvas, I can create you a dope graphic, and
Right.
you'll love it. But I had to realize that I don't always have to start from scratch and create something that the client is going to want. And it doesn't mean that I'm cheapening my skills. It just means that I only have so much time in a day to do something. So what I did, and shameless plug, like I use templates now
Spark, Canva.
all the time. Like, it's very rare now that I actually create something from scratch, unless it's like film and video and stuff like that.
Really?
Yeah, like graphic design. That's why I'm actually about to hire a part-time graphic designer, because I just don't have the mental space for it. So, like, for me and my company right now, really my mental focus is on helping people come up with different creative concepts for content, because
Mm-hmm.
obviously with COVID, being around, people ain't coming to your business, so you got to create video. Kind of like what you're doing right now.
Right.
With creating content, like, you got to be creative in that space, and that just takes a lot of time. So when I'm sitting in front of my computer, man, I don't want to be thinking about these gradients I got to put on the background, and
Yeah.
which font I want to use. Like, I'll just pay somebody to do that now. So
See, man, that's the hardest. Like, cause like literally, so like I said, we have like I'm the sole creator, like on my team, but we have a creative director that kind of basically approves or denies or whatever things, and they try to put me on Spark, and I'm like, man, it's not original, man. I don't want to use these templates, man. These joints is trash, man. Just all that stuff. And they're like, man, it helps the workflow. You just add on, and it helps you create more. But I'm like, bro, I'm just so stuck to just doing original content, because like you said, it's not original. Like, I'm not really,
Yeah.
it doesn't validate you as a graphic designer, as a
Yeah.
creative, if you use what somebody else did and put your own little spin on it, you
Right.
know.
Right.
But like, I guess that's a part of like the whole creative burnout process, you know, which is, you know, working around that and, you know, saying, hey, okay, I have to, you know, pinch the ends in a little bit here and, you know, get it to use a template. And that still doesn't say I'm less of a creative, because I'm still creating within those bounds.
Correct. Correct.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And what was the other thing I had on my mind? I was about to say, yeah. So what was like the indicator for you? Like, so like how you said you started to feel like that creative burnout was coming on. What was kind of the indicator for you that, yeah, okay, creative burnout was coming? Because for me, when I started feeling like that creative burnout idea, I'm like, okay, I don't have any ideas. Like, I can create something for like week to week, week to week to week. But then once I don't have any ideas, I'm like, okay, guys, I don't have no ideas. Like,
Yeah.
I noticed I'm burnt out. So what was like the indicator for you?
Yeah. For me, it's because I'm such a laid back person. Like, you know, I can sit around in the back on the, you know, on the deck and chill and be good. I don't have to go out and be, you know, in the scene or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I'm burnt out when I'm trying to relax, but I can't relax
Mm.
because my mind is going trying to figure out how do I solve this problem or how do I come up with this new idea. So when I try to relax, but I can't relax, that means I got too much on my brain and I don't know what to do. So at that point, I almost essentially have to shut the business down because,
Mm.
you know, I'm not going to be really any good to anybody, or I'm not going to give them that over deliver that I want to give them. You know, I might meet their expectations, but that's not, you don't stay in business just meeting expectations. So,
Right.
yeah.
So like with that, like, how do you work around it? Like in situations where, okay, you know, this creative burnout is coming, but you still have to like complete some tasks. Like, how do
Mhm.
you yourself try to work around that
Yeah.
creative burnout?
Yeah. So, what I do, if I feel it coming,
Mm-hmm.
then I won't tell the client this.
Never tell the client.
You
Never.
never tell the
I'm good.
client this.
I could be
Yeah.
crying. I'm good.
Yeah. So I don't tell the client this, but essentially, um, I let them know that I let them know without letting them know that I'm going to need more time to get this done within the parameters of our contract and what we agreed to. But you know, I may say something like, "Hey, you know, I need a few more days. I got a new idea. You know, I want to put it into the works." Or, you know, for myself, you know, it may be, you know, I may tell my wife, "Hey, man, I just need to take a day um, and not have any responsibilities.
Right.
Like, you know, I want to play with my kids,
Mm-hmm.
but you know, our philosophy, kind of for my house, is our kids don't run our lives; we run theirs.
Mm.
So, you know, if I need a day or she need a day, because my wife is a mental health therapist, so you can
Oh, okay.
imagine, you know, every day is wait for her. So for us, you know, we will say, hey, I need a day, or I might need to go to the hotel for a night and just sleep,
Yeah.
you know, something like that. But you know, I think it starts with like resetting, and then also going back to why I'm doing this. So, you know, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something like uh, people who, golly,
You could take your time. I'll edit in
yeah,
between. Yeah, we
okay,
good.
yeah. So it says something like people who know how always work for people who know why.
Mm.
So
Right. I get that.
people,
Yeah.
yeah, people who are at upper level management, leadership, so on and so forth, they're always focused on why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Because there's an end goal. And then, you know, their subordinates or people on that lower part of the totem pole, they're more focused on how. So as a business owner, as somebody who is creative, I always have to go back to why? You know, what is my why? And, you know, that's different for every person. But like for me, you know, one of my big things is like we talked about before we started, was that, especially in this, social climate and what's going on with Black America, is
Mm-hmm.
that, I'm not just doing this so that I can make myself, my business great or generate a certain amount of income, which is, a driving factor.
Right.
But, as I started to look outside of myself as to why, God has given me these gifts, it is really because I'm trying to help generate Black wealth.
Right.
Like, if I can help a business owner, go from, sell to now looking at a bigger picture of becoming a brand and somebody that people trust, I'm starting to spark, that generational wealth that they can pass on to their kids and put in other places so that we can help this community grow.
Right.
Because for me, you know, um, I feel like everybody has their role or their gift or their place in how we grow or develop or uh, manifest Black America into what it's supposed to be. So for me, it's not about us having equality, so to
Mm.
speak. I'm like, I don't want to be just like everybody else. I'm not looking to be equal to any other person on earth. I just want equity. So
We in the same
like,
vein because I had a
yeah,
person on my content that said it's not about equality anymore. That was our ancestors' fight. It's about equity, getting back what's
yeah,
owed to us. So yeah, continue. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
man.
dope.
So I want to make sure that you know if my client has, small children, that I can help put them in a place 10 years from now where, as it is for me, like I don't necessarily want to say to my son that you have to go to college
Right.
or
Me
you
neither.
have to do this. Like I always tell my wife, I want to have a check for 50 grand. I'm gonna sit down and say, Andrew, at probably about 14, freshman year of college, I'm like, look, man, let's start having these consistent conversations about what you're gonna do when you get this diploma, because you ain't gonna be here. So
Yeah, you ain't
yeah,
gotta go
yeah,
home, but you
yeah,
gotta
you gotta
get
go
back out of
home,
here.
but you gotta get up out of here.
Yeah.
So I want to be able to say, you got three options. You got a buck check for 50 grand. You got three options. I could pay for you a full ride from school. You can start your own business, or you can invest in something and I'm gonna be a partner with you.
Right.
So you got those three options. So I feel like if I can do that for myself, but I can also help another family be able to do something like that or exactly like that, then I feel like I'm being a contributor to society, to the Black community, even as a believer,
Right.
helping others, reach their goals. So I know I went on a rabbit
No,
trail,
you
but
good.
it's really about knowing what your why is. So outside of that, I know I like to travel. My favorite place on earth is Hawaii. I've been a couple times. I plan on getting property out there.
Word.
And, I just want to, people laugh at me when I say this, like I've legally been working, like I've been getting taxes out of my check since I was 14.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm 33 now, and I joke with people. I'm like, man, I'm coming up on close on putting in my 20, like they do in the military.
Right.
And man, yeah, I want to
About to
retire,
retire
man.
soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dog. Like 40 years old, me and my wife got a plan. It's like you don't want to be worried about money at 40 years old. So, um, I want to be able to help people get that, and I just want to be able to wake up, like really wake up. I know it's cliche. People say like really wake up and say, "Hey, God, what you want me to do today?" Like, I don't think people really think that's possible,
Right.
but it takes, a certain mind frame, certain level of faith to get there. And that's what kind of drives me when, I'm having some of that creative burnout. It's like, all right, Don, it's not about this graphic or this project or this film. Like, this is bigger than, 1224 media. So
Yeah, with me, like what kind of helps me is like this motivation factor for me as well. Like being, working within a church, a lot of times you don't get the credit. You don't get the
yeah,
credit that you want or that you feel like you deserve. And your pastor kind of sits in the front, you know what I'm saying? So with us as creatives, for me, it's never really been like, oh, I'm mad they taking the credit or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, my joint got that many views, or my joint got that many likes, so people really messing with the content like that. It's like, it's
Yep.
okay, cool. But then
Yep.
other times it's like, man, you're the only one. You feel, sometimes I feel like, man, okay, I'm the only one that's like volunteering, like during
Yeah.
the, I'm volunteering,
Yeah.
so I'm volunteering during the week. Ain't nobody else, if it doesn't feel like anybody else is doing the same thing, feels like it's like me and my pastor, like really the ones like putting in the work
Yeah.
during the
Yeah.
week, and it doesn't feel like nobody else is during the week. I know that's not true, but that's kind of what I guess the enemy tries to play with your mind. What I started doing months ago was, I have a dry erase board in my office where I kind of create, and I put create and serve to the glory of God on it, and I kind
That's what's
of
up.
stare at it sometimes, like in those moments when I needed that extra push. It's like, okay, you're creating for Jesus, you're not
Right.
creating for your pastor. You're not
Right. Right.
creating for your church. You're
Right.
creating for Jesus. Even outside of that realm, I usually just keep it in that realm of what the stuff I do with church, but I could even take it outside of that realm and say, no, okay, when it comes to Walk with Drew, when it comes to all other content, I'm creating for Jesus. I'm creating, I'm saying, to the glory of God. And that kind of helps me kind of balance out. But then too, it's also, I guess, how I try to work around it. I would say I kind of look at different sources of media. So like, that's one thing my creative director always kind of tries to tell me. It's like, okay, what are you looking at? Are you looking at things? Because like like I said, a trigger for me that I'm nearing that burnout is I'm running out of ideas. And I don't have the energy to that gas in the tank to
Yeah.
go figure out something new. So I think looking at something different. So like,
Yeah.
okay, what's on my Instagram feed? Am I looking at something in I'm okay, I need to follow some other accounts. What other things are jumping out at me that kind of spark that creativity? And that's kind of how I kind of balance through it. So
Yeah.
with that, like, how do you prevent creative burnout when you see it? As soon as you see it, I think you kind of went over in the beginning of some gems, but like, as soon as you see it, like, how do you prevent it as soon as you see it?
Yeah. So one of the practical things I do is I, like, as you said, I submerge myself. I put my eyes on things that I want. That may sound superficial to some people,
Nah,
but
I get it.
like, usually, like, if I don't have this 1224 media background, whenever I'm on a Zoom call, you see Hawaii in the background. Like,
Mm.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the map, and I'm like, I was on that street. I was on that street. I climbed
Right.
that mountain. Like, I take in those experiences, because most people don't notice about me, but until I was 27, I never left the East Coast of the United States. And some people even further down have never even left their neighborhood or their city.
Right. At that same
And
age. Right.
yeah, and when I started to see things outside of what I normally would see, Fayetteville, and then now Charlotte, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to come to Charlotte as well, is that I I knew there was more out there than what I had been seeing. So for me, it's putting my eyes on things that I want. Um, I sometimes I may have to actually write down, what it is that I'm trying to accomplish as well. So, I may get stuck on, how do I make, this particular motion graphic pop, or, what, creative list can I put that we can post on social media? And sometimes I'll have to, like, write down the actual goal of what I'm trying to do. So if the goal is I'm trying to create a list of the top 10 things you can do to, relieve stress, I'll write that thing down again and then stare at it and then be like, wait, what would I do? Like, what
Right.
would this person do?
Right.
What have I heard from a mentor or a friend or a peer that they've done that I can put into this piece of content? And sometimes I think we try to, especially as believers, we try to be super spooky and be like, Holy Spirit, just drop it on me. Like, it's like,
Gotta go in the prayer
nah,
closet real quick,
man.
and yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm gonna spend 4 hours in the prayer closet for 10 minutes of
Right.
piece of content. Is like, no, it
No.
don't really work like that.
If he
It's not,
comes, he comes. Right.
yeah. So it's really about submerging yourself, like you said, in creative spaces, whether that be, sometimes on social, books,
Right.
making sure you're attending, conferences,
Right.
marketing sources, blogs, the whole nine.
Right.
So you want to put yourself in places where people are being stretched. And I
Right.
think that's another kind of boundary that we put ourselves in with creative burnout, is that we don't stretch ourselves. Like,
Mm.
we think that, my pastor said something so profound. Like when I was like 25 years old, he said, you can't live your life um, and thinking that you're going to succeed in the future off past information.
Mm.
Like
Facts.
you can't think you're going to make it through your 30s when you haven't picked up a book since you were 29.
Right. Mm.
Like, and that, it's not just books. That's just, going
Everything
up and
consuming.
submerging.
What are
Yeah.
you consuming? Right.
You're learning. So it's like, if I don't, put myself in those places to learn, man, my brain is going to be behind.
Right.
And that can't happen when you're creative.
Yeah, it can't. You gotta be constantly
Yeah.
consuming, constantly consuming. Before getting to the next question, actually, at a story you said you brought up conferences.
Mm-hmm.
Like most recently, like the most recent story I had with creative burnout was right before quarantine. So like kind of how you said quarantine happened couldn't happen at a better time for you because it kind of gave you a break. For me, it was the same thing. Like I was getting to that hedge of okay, I'm tired. I ain't got no ideas. God, I'm trying to go. I ain't trying to.
Yeah.
I'm tired. Like whatever. And then there was a conference. I don't know if you heard about it, but it's the Create conference with Brian Meadows in
Yeah.
Atlanta Embassy.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be there. Then they
Mm-hmm.
canceled it because of COVID. So I had the whole break planned out. I'm like, okay, April 2nd through the 4th, I'm gonna go get poured in,
Yeah.
and I'm
Yeah.
gonna go, recharge. This is my break because I'm feeling burnt out. And then COVID happened, and everything shut down. And then that was the break I needed because I've been at home for 6 months. So
Yeah.
that was the break I needed.
That's what's
So
up.
like with that, you talked about ideas. Do you ever feel like there's such a thing as running out of ideas? Do you believe in that concept that you run out of ideas? My creative director kind of like my creative director and my pastor kind of battle with me about this because I'm like, man, I got no ideas. And they're like, well, like you did it before, you can do it again. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do
Mm-hmm.
you like or what are you looking at? And I'm like, no, it's not about looking at. I ain't got no ideas. Like, do
Yeah.
you believe that exists,
Yeah.
that you running out of ideas?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. And I think it is, I may get in trouble for saying this, but I think sometimes, like, it's almost like God will shut your brain off.
On
Like,
purpose, right?
on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Not just for, for that reason, but for various reasons. Like
Right.
sometimes, you know, especially if like sometimes I get in a zone for like 4, 5, 6 weeks. I feel like, or at least I feel like I'm killing it. And
Mm-hmm.
the clients are happy and I'm rolling. And I think that sometimes we could almost make that into like an idol.
Mm.
Like I'm the guy, I'm the dude, like I'm that,
I
like
feel you.
come to me,
Right.
so on and so forth. So it's like sometimes, I don't think he does it often, but sometimes, he may be like, all right, you feeling yourself too much. Like I'm the one giving you these ideas.
Right.
It's not you.
Right.
So like I think you do run out of ideas because I think you're supposed to like refresh yourself
Right.
regularly. So like you shouldn't have ideas 24/7, 365. Like, you're not Jesus, you're not God. So sometimes you just need to get away, not to even, recharge so you can come back with ideas, just because your brain just need to relax. Like,
Mm.
you need a change of scenery. You just need to go do something else. So
Yeah.
I believe you definitely can run out of ideas. Like, um, someone told me, a while back, like they're a speaker, they speak regularly, and they're like, somebody called me to come speak on this particular subject, even though I know I can speak on that subject. If I don't feel like I have anything to say, I'm not going.
Mm-hmm.
And I firmly agree and believe that. It's like, if I don't have something profound that's gonna, help somebody, like, man, I ain't
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah. You ain't taking
I
a
ain't,
gig, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
nah.
Like with me, when it came, I had a thought about ideas just now and it just left me. What was I just thinking about? Uh, ideas. I just had a thought. Oh yeah, so like when I'm burnt out, like I'll take that break, but then as soon as I take that break, God drops, idea drops in my head. I'm like, okay, so it wasn't like, sometimes it's never really about like you like um needing to, like, you need to recharge, but the idea didn't stop. God kind of just pushed the, turn the spigot off a little bit and to let you sit
Mm-hmm.
back, and then you're able to hear him again, and then it's like, okay, boom, here's another
Yeah.
idea, here's more ideas, here more ideas, because you took that little lapse.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like,
Absolutely.
do you like getting into like resting as a Christian? We kind of talked about this earlier, this restless mentality that we kind of both have. Like, how do manage resting as a believer from your work? Do you,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, you say it's a kind of a difficult task for you at times,
Mm-hmm.
do you believe in forced rest? Like, you just like, okay, I'm just gonna sit out and just not doing anything. Like,
Yeah.
how do you battle rest as a Christian?
Yeah. I kind of had to come to the realization that yeah, like you said, that's a great way to put it. I had to force myself to rest. Because when I'm, like I said before, when I'm in it, I'm in it.
Mm-hmm.
And because I want to make sure that I, do a good job, and then I garner the respect of, those that are, asking me for this content, or even the ones that are putting their eyes on it. It's hard to stop when you could take it another level and do something even better, or make, that particular thing better than what it was. So my mentor told me something profound. She said, uh, people demand last minute things from you because you keep coming through.
That's a word for
And
me. Okay.
and
That's a word
I
for me. Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
I
Right.
I just sat there in silence. I couldn't say nothing. I was like, yeah, I keep
That's
saying yes.
right.
And now I don't want to confuse, you know, when that's your job
Mhm.
versus, volunteering. But even within your job, you still have to have those boundaries in place where, you know, I'm willing to go over and above, but
Mhm.
I still have to have these things in place, because what I don't want to do is make, my job, or what I have to do for church per se, bigger than my family and things of that
Right.
sort, or my own personal and mental, emotional, physical health.
Right.
Because again, in turn, I'm really not going to be any good for anybody, on both sides. So I did have to make myself rest. I had to implement no phone zone. I had to, you know, literally put on my Google Calendar reminders about date nights and stuff like that. I live and die by my calendar on my
Mhm.
phone. And yeah, like I had to force myself to say, okay, I could go another 2 hours, but I'm going to go to sleep.
Right.
Um, and although I am a night owl by nature, sometimes I will be like, you know what? I think it'll probably be better if I just go ahead and get these 5 hours of sleep, get up early, and then restart, versus me just trying to, crunch it out.
Yeah.
Um,
A lot of times for, like, I would say black creatives, but just like in black culture period, we
mm,
always are via the hip hop scene, via like acting. We always see that 24 hours. Oh, I stayed up 36 hours. Oh, I stayed up 72 hours. And especially with rap culture, that's really big.
yeah,
Like, you stay up for 36, 48 or whatever. Oh, no sleep, and we just staying up. And like, one of the things I had to learn for myself was like, once I kind of got into, I wouldn't necessarily say I'm immersed in Christian culture. I'm around Christian culture, like in terms of the creative aspect. But one thing I had to realize is just like, okay, you're doing this content thing for God now. Your mission is different. Like before, it was like, okay, Drew,
mm,
trying to get popping, trying to get on TV or whatever, trying to do those same things now, but with a different mission.
yeah,
And beforehand, it was like, okay, I gotta stay up, I gotta do all this. But now it's like, all right, I can go to sleep now. Like, my
mm,
progress or like my successfulness is not my responsibility anymore. Like as a
Mm-hmm.
believer, the success and responsibility for me to get to whatever place I'm supposed to get to is God's now, because
Yeah.
he the one that told me to do this. He the one that told me to get out and
Yeah.
do this. So it's like
Yeah.
the onus and the responsibility is kind of off my shoulders now. Whereas beforehand, it's like, okay, how am I gonna get here? And that was kind of like the moment where I kind of came to Christ at, was like, okay, God, I'm doing this content or whatever. I had content before I started doing Christian content. I'm doing this content. I want to get to, I'm here, and then there's here, then there's there, and I'm like, okay, how do I get from here up here? I don't know what does this look like. I didn't know what this
Right.
looked like,
Right.
and that was that moment of submission for me when it came to coming to Christ. Was just like, okay, God, I'm going to stop trying to worry about this to try to get here. I'm gonna just
Right.
stay here and submit and let
Right.
you create or figure out. And that's what happened. Like I've been on this Christian journey, really walking with God. I've been in church my whole life, but really walking with God for like the last 4 years. And like he filled in these gaps. I didn't think about the things that I'm thinking about now 4 years ago. So
Yeah.
it's just like, that's one thing I think Christians, we as ourselves, we can't like hold the responsibility of like being successful. Like we have to give that over to God.
Yeah. Yeah. That's profound. And then, as you said, like when you're trying to get from here and get to, that second or third level above, like, practically, um, you're gonna you're gonna burn out. You're gonna blow up before you even get there,
Right.
because like that's not even how, I don't want to use the word not secular, but that's just not how business and growing anything works. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, that's why I had to like say, okay, I had to have a conversation with myself, and I said, what can if I push myself, what can I do in 24 hours? If I push myself, what can I do in 24 hours if I want to be comfortable? And then what's the minimum amount that I can do within 24 hours? And so for me to really get to the level where I want to be in life from a business standpoint, I had to realize that I had to go from maxing out to where I think I'm kind of in a comfortable range. And then next is where I want to be doing as minimal as possible to be able to run the business. But that takes me kind of getting rid of the pride thing, where I don't have to be the one that does it. Like my company can get the recognition and I can get dividends and benefits from that. And I don't have to be the one that everybody shouts out.
Right.
So, when you're growing a business as I am now, my focus is kind of um, hiring and, plugging in my weaknesses. And I don't feel like I have a quote unquote weakness, but I know personally somebody who can do every aspect of media better than I can.
Right. Same.
And my goal is to get them on my team.
Same. Same.
Like, so I know that takes more money than I got right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can like lean on them for something here and there, and I can grow the brand as a whole, then the money will eventually come where I can just hire them, because some people, like I know, I'm not going to mention their name, but the person that I'm thinking about hiring part-time to do graphic design, like they went to school for that. That's what they love to do, but they're in a whole profession that they don't really too much care for. Like I
Right.
would love to be able to give them a salary for the whole year and be like, hey man, just come
Right.
do graphics for the business and do your thing,
Right.
walk in your passion. So um, I think for me to even be able to do that means I got to be obedient enough and get rid of enough pride where I'm not the centerpiece and I'm not burning myself out so that I can really make room for other people to come along. And I think that, as you said, with the Black culture, even going into like black business owners coming together, it's
Mm-hmm.
like we always got to be the owner, head honcho, so on and so forth.
You plugging in other people's content right now, because
Yeah,
somebody just talked about that 2 episodes ago. Yeah.
yeah, man. It's like, me and my wife are working on a venture for her business,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked her. I said, if somebody come to you and present you a partnership where you're no longer, let's say she's like 51% majority owner, but they got 49%, but you can walk out the door with $5 million. You trying to tell me you ain't gonna take that?
Mm-hmm.
But you gonna, want to be still the 100% owner and be
Mm-hmm.
making $250,000 a year.
Mm.
Like, we don't, like,
Yeah.
stop.
We want
Like,
to own. Yeah, we don't want to
yeah.
be second place. We want to be first.
Yeah, nah, man. Right, I don't care about no fame. Write me the check so I can disappear, bro. I don't care about that, man. That's stupid, man. So, hey.
Yeah. So do you ever feel like within that, like one thing I constantly struggle with this. I constantly not every single day, often I struggle with missing my wave. I struggle with like, okay, God, did my time pass me by? Going back to
Mm-hmm.
earlier, me saying I'm taking a break in October from really posting content or doing content. I
Mm-hmm.
constantly when I take breaks, I'm like, okay, that little week or that 2 weeks or that 3 weeks, somebody's gonna slide in and they're gonna create and they're gonna captivate people and they're gonna grab followers or grab attention that I could have been grabbing. And I
Mm-hmm.
constantly struggle with like just missing my wave. Like, man, God, like if I take this break next month, I'm becoming more okay with that. Last year I wasn't though, because I'm like, man, if I take this break, God, I'm trying to get on TV. God, if I take this
Mm-hmm.
break, ain't nobody gonna see me. God, I'm taking a break. I'm taking, you know what I'm saying, my foot off people's necks. Like I gotta keep going. So do you ever feel like you kind of miss your wave as a creative?
um, yes. Or yes and no. That's a great question. I guess the way I look at it is, I look at it from the negative perspective, then I look at it from a perspective that I was shown a couple of years ago. From the negative perspective, it is for me, when I go from, and let's use social media for example, when
Mm-hmm.
I go from looking on social media for ideas to um, overindulging or excessive scrolling.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of go from being inspired to now being intimidated.
Mm.
So for me, I have to limit it. And that's usually when that comes into place where I'm like, dang, man, they doing this, they doing that.
I ain't got no money, God.
I
What
ain't
am I
got,
gonna
yeah,
do?
like, man, geez, like
Yeah.
I could have done that if I had more time or
Right.
blah, 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 blah. And then like somebody opened my eyes to the fact that, and it's crazy because like as I've met people who are always on,
Mm-hmm.
I started to realize, and
They
I've
wish
met
you
some
was
of
in
these
your
people,
yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
like that, and then like I don't want their life, like, man, like what it takes to do that. If well, now let me say this, like, you're a high, celebrity type. Let's say, for instance, like Russell Simmons.
Okay.
That man got a 300-person team. He can
Yeah.
be on all the time, but it
Yeah.
ain't really him though.
Right.
But for instance, on my level, I may see somebody who I know, kind of we've been on the same track, but then I kind of see them go up a little bit. I'm still here,
Mm-hmm.
and then I start to realize, or I talk to them, and I realize what's going on in their life right now. I'm like, man, I don't even know. I don't know if I want that, bro. Like, I don't know if that's worth the check, man.
Right.
Like, so I have to like pause, like, man, wait a minute. Again, but that's when you got to go back to what's your why. Like, why are you doing this? Are you doing this to try to one up or be the man or so on and
Right.
so forth? And then, like, as long as I'm, doing what God called me to do, and I'm doing it to the best of my ability, then He'll have me where I want to be. So.
Yeah, that's a constant thing. Like I see creatives, I see Kev on stage, I see all these people, and
Yeah.
I'm like, man. And then it's just like you thinking about what they got to go through. Then even like not even like just the creative aspect, but it's just like the turmoil that they got to go through online. Like they get picked at. Like every little bit of what they do, I know it's gonna happen to me. It's already happened to me.
Yeah.
But every little bit
Yeah.
of what they do gets picked at. And you like you want
Yeah.
to you want that million follower. You want to drop a
Yeah.
video and 700,000 people look at it within the
Yeah.
first hour. But do you realize what's in their DMs, what's in the comment section, what they have to battle at night trying to turn that off, and then like not
Yeah.
trying to please these people, but actually still create for fun? Like, do you want to go through all that and just like, okay, Drew, you're 27, but like maybe the lesson that you're supposed to learn at 27 is going to help you when you get if and when you get to that million, or is it even really about that million? But
Yeah.
or you get to that higher, you know what I'm saying, like you don't want to bypass lessons. That's what kind of keeps me grounded. It's like, okay, you don't want to bypass the lesson I can learn here and be thinking you missed your wave when you're not adequately prepared to deal with $1 million. You're not adequately prepared to deal with 400,000 followers and media deals and stuff like that. That lesson may not come. And then those people who are my age and they got the $1 million deals, they on TV, they may be suffering off camera. They may be trash.
Most of them.
Yeah, trash, bad eating, everything. They may be trash off camera.
Yeah, man. I that's so profound. And like I was listening, I just downloaded Lecrae's Restoration album and kind of listened to the lyrics, and like his last maybe 2 or 3 albums, I've been really like digging into the lyrics and like to what everything you just saying. I was thinking about him like it was maybe like 3 months ago, and I was just thinking about, man, what will end up, and I don't know why I was even going here, but I was like, man, we as believers, the judgmental ones anyway, we're going to cause that man to stop producing content that we need, like that we like. Like when I got saved, he was the one that came up randomly on I think it was like Pandora back then. And like, cause everybody was like, man, you should listen to like Kirk Franklin, Fred Hammond. I'm
I
like,
need some
bro,
more too.
I'm sitting at Wells Fargo, like, man, sitting at my desk with Kirk in my ears, like, man, I can't do this, bro. I'm just gonna have to go back to Jay-Z.
Yeah.
And all that. I'm like, man, this ain't gonna work. So he was a cat that I heard the background joint with Andy Mineo. And so I started to listen to him. And so, he's kind of been one of the artists that I listen to on a regular basis. So I was like, man, every time he posts something, and I jump into the comments, and I'm like,
Pharisees,
bro, like,
yep,
like people think they want their life. You ain't about that life, bro.
Yeah.
You're
not ready for it. Like, it's a whole nother level, like being constantly misunderstood. I love it though. Like, this part of me that like with that whole like coming that people are going to like misunderstand me and be in my inbox. So, Drew, why did you post this? I already get it now, but it's just like, it's going to be, you want to be times 1,000 with people that's supposed to be your brothers and sisters, and then trying to combat that and still create, and the people don't love you like that. So it's a wild web. But then I kind of feed into it. Like, I'm like, all right, yeah, you don't understand me, but you're not meant to understand me. That's one of the things I love about Lecrae. Like, he started to break out of that box like a couple years ago, where it was like, okay, like I think after the Anomaly album, he kind of started to break away and do something that was different from Christian culture, and everybody still doesn't see it to this day. But there's like, he's trying to reach the world.
Exactly.
So like, people still don't see it to this day, and it's like, do you want to go through then growing up? So he's on camera, he's growing up and going through his faith, and you have to grow through that on camera, through that on a glass house. Like, do you really want that? Are you really prepared at 27, Drew, to grow in front of millions of people? So it's definitely something to think about. But I appreciate you coming on here, man.
Man.
I hope you guys like enjoyed this conversation just about creative burnout. I don't want to take too much of your time. If you could just kind of shout out your media ventures and everything you do on social, so people can get familiar with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So 1224 Media, that's the name of the marketing agency. You can find us online, 1224media.net. Instagram at 1224 Media, so that's 1224 Media, and Facebook, same. So
I
Let
appreciate you
us know.
coming on here, man.
Mm-hmm. Pleasure to be on, man. This
Yes,
was fun.
sir. I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. This was another episode of the Walk with You podcast. My name is Drew Muzan, joined alongside Donald Currie. This was Walk with You. Peace out.